The Journal of Dr. T.M. Seward. Entry recorded this 21st day of March, 1898. Since my last entry 6 weeks ago, I have seen the love of my life, Mina Grant, languish and die of a malady I could neither remedy nor indeed diagnose. As if this were not a full enough portion of grief for any man to bear, I have subsequently been forced to witness the same symptoms developing in my dear friend Lucy Westfall, and have been equally powerless to prevent her decline. Though my beloved Mina's symptoms were first manifested on the morning of February 7th, the events of the preceding evening were so bizarre and foreboding that, although I cannot rationally connect them to our troubles, I instinctively feel they bear mentioning. It was at dusk on that horrendous evening that I noticed a ferocious storm gathering on the horizon. The black cloud increased in size as it hurtled towards the shore. I know it was my imagination, but I had the distinct feeling that this was not merely some meteorological phenomenon, but rather some conscious, malevolent being with an appetite for destruction. I was not alone in my interest, since many of the villagers had gathered on the beach and at vantage points along the cliffs were looking on in wonder and amazement. For out of the center of the storm, at the belly of the beast as it were, a small sailing ship appeared. She was a cargo ship, of the sort rarely seen any longer, and she was being tossed about cruelly like a child's plaything. As she neared the shore, pursued by that relentless howling maelstrom, we expected to see the frantic crewmen on deck, trying to keep her afloat and guide her away from the rocks ahead. But one figure, only one figure, was in evidence. There was a man at the wheel, swaying about wildly, with no apparent control over his movements. Was he drunk? Unconscious? If so, how could he still be gripping the wheel? With a crash that rivaled the thunder now all about us, the ship was driven upon the rocks. And the answer became apparent. The man was dead, quite dead. His hands were not gripping the wheel at all, but had been lashed to it for reasons I cannot begin to discern. Thinking there might still be a few living souls on board, several of the more courageous townfolk approached the vessel to effect a rescue. But immediately, a great gust of wind tore the hatch from the cargo hold, and from below, the ship's only living occupant emerged. There he stood, impervious to the powerful wind swirling about him, and the prodigious waves rushing across the deck. A huge black hound. His proportions exceeded those of any breed I had ever seen or heard of, easily larger than a Great Dane and as massive across the shoulders and haunches as a stallion. As if to acknowledge his presence, the clouds briefly parted and a full moon shone upon him, prompting him to throw back his head and release a howl so loud and passionate that could easily be heard above the winds and the thunder that surrounded him. Then, with a mighty lunge, he cast himself over the rail and landed on the beach 20 feet below. He then cast his attention to the promontory above the hospital where stands Carfax Abbey, and as he turned to gallop off in that direction, he once again gave forth with that ungodly howl. This time, the sound of it seemed to penetrate the very walls of the building, echoing up and down the corridors, and stirring the inmates to their own wild, demonic chorus.